Alrighty folks, thanks for clicking on today's video. This is James Cards FC, and I talk about the financial side of the soccer card market, and today I'm getting into a very special video. This is the 1.5k subscriber Q&A video, so thank you guys so much for all the support. We've reached 1.5 thousand subscribers. Really cool milestone, but without further ado, I know people want to get into the questions, so I'm going to go ahead and just start with those right off the bat. Thank you guys so much. Let's get to the questions. So I will move myself into the top right corner, and we'll start with what is the most expensive card in my collection. Now, I actually had to think about it for a minute because I think there's some of them that could compete for this, as well as the Xavi auto that I've shown previously, the patch auto from 2003. But I think, without knowing exactly what the comps are going to be on stuff like this, I think it's this Neymar. It's the 2014 Panini Prism World Cup Neymar Gold Power PSA 10. It is numbered out of 5, and it is a Pop 1. And outside of the 1/1 from this set, it's probably the best Neymar card in existence, given that it is from one of the most premium sets in the hobby. It's still a really early card for Neymar. It's out of just 5, and it's the only one in a PSA 10 grade. And so besides the 1/1, I would argue that this might be his best card in existence. In terms of where I should have sold it and that sort of strategy, I should have definitely sold it before the 2022 World Cup or during the 2022 World Cup. And I knew I should have done that at the time to maximize its value, but it's special to me to have possibly Neymar's best card. Neymar was one of the first players that I followed for his full career. I used to make YouTube compilation videos of his matches when he was playing for Brazil back in like 2011 or 2012. So those are probably still floating around somewhere on the internet. I can't even remember what YouTube account I was using at the time, but they're probably out there somewhere. I was a really big fan of him, and his Prism cards were also some of the first cards I bought and sold when I entered the market, so I was raw grading those base, silver, and some of the non-numbered variations, and that eventually enabled me to keep leveling up and make those moves necessary in order to eventually level up into a card like this. So it's kind of a whole full circle thing for me. What's his value right now? I personally have no idea. I don't want to try and comp it because I think that'd be a little weird to try and pump and comp my own card, but not looking to sell it right now. In fact, I'd love to actually add to it with other parallels from this set in PSA 10 condition. I think it'd be really cool to go for the rainbow, considering I have one of the most difficult ones to get, but I'd really like Neymar to put together one Ballon d'Or season that he really needs to become sort of the third or fourth legend of this era, and so if he doesn't do that, I'm fine with just keeping this one, but if he does, I wouldn't have any problem picking up some more and starting a bigger Neymar collection, just because I think if he does eventually get that Ballon d'Or, or he does eventually get that World Cup, the narrative surrounding him gets a lot better from a historical perspective than it currently is. Alrighty. Buy, sell, hold. Fuller Balogun, Giovanni Reina, and Christian Pulisic, probably the three most popular and three most talented players for the United States men's national team. I've talked about this before, but I would be selling Balogun right now. As of today, this video is recording on June the 21st of 2023, so if you're watching this at a later date, my answer might be completely different. But I would be selling Balogun right now. As I've shared before, I think we're at a high point in his market for the near-term future because he doesn't have many catalysts, and his cards are going to be graded in mass now that they have suddenly popped off in value. So a lot of people are going to start selling them into PSA if they haven't already, and those are going to come back and start flooding onto the market as people try to cash in on him. So if you have any graded slabs of him right now, I would be selling right now before the flood comes from PSA, even though prices are already actually falling for him. His silver prisms went up to about $60 raw after his United States men's national team first goal, and now they've dropped back into, I think, the $30, $40 range. So his stuff is cooling off a bit, but I would still be selling because I think we're in a period where a lot more slabs of his are going to flood onto the market in these next few months, and I wouldn't want to be trying to sell during the flood. In terms of hold, I would go Gio Reyna. I like him as a buy because I think he's our most talented player. I think he's more talented than Balogun. I think he's more talented than Pulisic. Injuries and other stuff are really holding him back. So I do think he's a best player, but I'm worried about the Greg factor and the injury factor. He obviously has the whole history with our current and former head coach Greg Berhalter, so not really sure what's going to happen with him there, but eventually the talent should win out, and he does have very few rookie cards for 2019, so I think that's a great positive for his market, but I just am unsure right now what his future outlook looks like if Greg is still the coach of the team, because I could see situations in which Greg doesn't let him start, which would be foolish, but that is always a concern I guess you have to have now. For the buy, I would pick Christian Pulisic. I think he's still the face of the team. I think it's obvious that he's still the face of the team at this point. When we played in the Nations League, he was clearly our best player against Mexico. And while he didn't play that well in the final against Canada, he usually plays very, very well for the United States, and he just got a big transfer to AC Milan. He's faced huge corrections in his card market, like most players have, but it feels, at least in my opinion, like his cards will always be relevant as long as the United States men's national team is relevant in the soccer card market. And he could also restart his career with AC Milan, and I don't know if that's currently priced into his prices. Pretty much his prices are only revolving around what he does for the United States men's national team. So if he ends up returning to a world-class form like he had during the pandemic with Chelsea, maybe that could help his market from a club standpoint as well. But that is how I would evaluate the three headliners for the United States men's national team. And like I always say with the United States players, I would not be buying these or playing in this market unless you are a United States men's national team supporter, because their cards are vastly overvalued compared to what their actual talent or legacy level is. Alrighty, next question. Is there value in all one-of-ones or only some one-of-ones? So, my basic opinion on this would be just due to the rarity and the nature of the one-of-ones, I think no matter the player or the set, they're going to have a nice floor of value because lots of people collect one-of-ones, and they could be grails for player collectors or set collectors. One-of-ones just check a lot of boxes in terms of different people that could be interested in them in ways that other cards can't be. But with that being said, the set, type of auto, sticker versus on-card, career year, etc. can greatly impact the value of the one-of-ones. The super expensive one-of-ones are super expensive for a reason, like Messi's 2022 World Cup one-of-ones, and the cheaper one-of-ones are cheaper for a reason. If they're random sticker autos or smaller players from cheaper sets, they could be pretty cheap, but they still, depending on the player in the set, could have a really high floor. So I put these two examples up here. You have the Lionel Messi Gold Power one-of-one that sold for north of $200,000, and then you have the Garib one-of-one for Saudi Arabia from that same set that sold for $200. Garib will never have a card that sells anywhere near $200 besides this one, but because it's a one-of-one and because it's in an important set, it still sells for $200, despite the fact that I doubt he's ever had another card sell for more than maybe $10 or $15. Huge premium because of the one-of-one. So there are people that specifically shoot out for one-of-ones or one-of-ones of teams, one-of-ones of players, so they just have a really high floor in comparison to what other cards might not have, and then a really high ceiling on the higher end. So I think targeting one-of-ones is super interesting, but obviously you're going to have to be playing at a higher financial level, because if you're paying $200 for a Garib one-of-one, it's a completely different market than what the more normal sides of the market are. So the one-of-one market is its own unique thing. I would definitely study it if you're interested in sort of playing in that market, but there are some very, very hefty premiums and pretty big floors for that market. Next question was my favorite Shakhtar player ever. I am a Shakhtar Donetsk supporter. This has been probably well documented throughout my channel's history. It's also my logo is a playoff on the Shakhtar logo. So I've probably explained this story before, but the reason I'm a Shakhtar supporter is because of FIFA 14 and FIFA 15. I played up to the Division 1 level when that game came out when I was just starting university, so I played it really, really seriously. I guess you would call it semi-professionally if I wanted to say that, but yeah, I was really into FIFA, and I was specifically just playing with Shakhtar and Brazil as my two squads, so I really, really loved playing with Douglas Costa and Bernard. They were the reason that I started playing with Shakhtar, because when I think it was FIFA 14 came out, there was a lot of hype on Bernard because he was a 5-star skiller from a 3 or 4-star team that you could basically take advantage of in terms of you're only playing with 3 or 4-star teams, so you're going to get matched up with other 3 or 4-star teams. So the fact that you have a guy with 5-star skills can make a really big difference if you're good at utilizing that. So without getting too deep into old FIFA metas and stuff like that, I really liked playing as Shakhtar, and so eventually from my experience with FIFA, I started following the team in real life, and so I'm now a big supporter nowadays for Shakhtar. I'm probably the biggest supporter that they have in the United States, but that's not really saying much. But yeah, that's why I follow the team. My favorite player was Douglas Costa. He was the best player in FIFA during those years for Shakhtar. That card right there, the 80 overall Cam Douglas Costa card, is my favorite FIFA Ultimate Team card of all time and my favorite FIFA card in general of all time. I had so much fun playing with that card. Or even just that player in that version of the game. I would play as the Brazilian national team, and I would put him at striker instead of whoever else was on that team. I'm pretty sure I took Neymar out and played Bernard at left wing and Costa at striker. So, yeah, just had a lot of fun with those games, and so now I follow the team. On the current team, in terms of my favorite player, I would have said Mudryk, but he's gone now, and he was probably the best player that I ever got to see play for Shakhtar. Actually watching him in his games and stuff like that, I think he's probably the best player I ever saw play for Shakhtar, and that was really cool, and I hope he does succeed with Chelsea, even though he looks like a completely different player than he did for Shakhtar so far. I hope he does play well. But with that being said, I'm not buying his cards or anything because his Chrome stuff is not in Shakhtar kit. Big disappointment in my opinion, but I don't think most people care. In terms of players to watch on the current team that aren't Mudryk because he's gone, I'd be watching Sudakov if he's in Merlin, which I don't think he will be because I don't think Shakhtar is going to be included in the Merlin set. But if he is, please sell me all his low-numbered stuff. I guess I can't really pump him because he doesn't really have any cards. He has stickers. Please don't buy those. They're never going to be worth anything. And Sudakov could never be worth anything as well, but he is a very, very talented attacking midfielder. In terms of his statistics, he is very comparable to Pedri. He plays in a completely different league from Pedri, but his advanced statistics are very similar. So he's doing what Pedri does, just at a lower level. So really high on him for the future. He'll probably end up getting transferred to a much bigger club within the next couple years. So of the guys in the current team, I think he's the one to keep the biggest eye on going forward. Next question, will demographics favor pre-modern era and pre-modern players, cards, that sort of thing? I think this is possible, yes. This is something that has been discussed, I think, at length when talking about pre-modern. The fact that a lot of people that are getting into the soccer card market now, as it's become mainstream, when they eventually have money to spend, the players that they watched growing up were from the pre-modern era. So it's possible that the pre-modern era players will receive a big boost in price because the people that watch them play and are into the soccer card market will have a lot of money to spend on cards that are in very low population. At least that's the basic theory. I personally think it's interesting to talk about the nostalgia for soccer cards in particular and how that better supports the group of players that appear in 2014 Prism, 2015 Flawless, 2017 Chrome, and 2018 Prism, and the sets of that sort of era of the soccer card market. I think that specifically because these are the super mainstream chase products when the soccer card market became more mainstream, and people will probably have nostalgia for those products versus the products that came out when soccer cards were completely worthless. For example, you probably saw breaks or got into breaks or maybe even broke yourself 2014 Prism or 2017 Chrome or 2018 Prism or more modern significant sets like that, but I very much doubt that people were watching breaks of or breaking actual product of 2004 Mega Cracks. So you don't really have that nostalgia for the set that you might for these more modern products. So I would keep that in mind as a possible nostalgia narrative to just track going forward. But in general, I think the theory does make sense that pre-modern players could see good premiums in the future if this this era that has started collecting soccer cards eventually comes into more money as they advance in their careers and then goes back and spends a lot of money on pre-modern era cards. I think that makes some good sense, and the pops on some pre-modern key cards are very low in comparison to cards from the same era from other sports. For example, LeBron James has hundreds of rookies and hundreds of different numbered variations and all that kind of stuff, and Lionel Messi has 7 rookies and they're all pretty low pop. So I really like the factors there, but that's something that's obviously been discussed on this channel a million times before. Then I had a couple questions about prospecting strategy. The first one was about quantity versus quality. The question was, when prospecting, do you think it's better to target multiple higher numbered parallels or 1 or 2 low numbered parallels? So to answer this question, I think you have to think about what your approach is going to be when you're going into prospecting. The lower numbered parallels have a higher ceiling because they're lower numbered. They can attract higher prices, of course, but they cost a higher entry point, and you'll only be able to acquire one or two of them with the funds that you're going to be using, which limits your selling strategy because you have to cash out all at once, and it could not it could be hard to pick when the best time to cash out is. For example, if you buy a one of one, for example, you only have one opportunity to sell that, and you sort of got to thread the needle in the timing and figure out when you think is the best possible time to sell it, because once you sell that one, you're not going to get it back, and you're pretty much done with that prospect. With the higher number of parallels, you have a lower ceiling because obviously they're cheaper. They're not going to be as expensive as the lower numbered stuff, but they'll usually move in line with the low numbered cards, and you can sell them at different points in time because you have multiples. For example, if a gold prism goes up 3x, then a higher numbered prism will probably go up 2 or 3x as well, just at different price starting entry price levels, but they usually move in somewhat of a unison from that perspective. And more importantly, I'd make sure that you're targeting the most in-demand types of parallels possible. I think that's the most important thing personally in this market, especially when there's so many different parallels coming out, and so much of it, in my opinion, is just junk, like seismic parallels, lava parallels, bubbles parallels, all that sort of stuff. I don't understand what the market would be for that sort of thing. So I personally would be focusing on true colors from key sets, sapphire parallels, stuff like that. Just the most obvious things possible that when people go to an eBay search for a player, the first few things that they might search for, those are the ones that will have the most demand and will move in price first and fastest in comparison to the other cards, which sort of play catch up to the most mainstream ones. So I just put up Balgan here as an example. These silver prisms, as well as we're going to pretend that's a pure gold prism, they all sort of move in unison. But if you bought actually I don't even know what the ratio would be. If you bought 20 silver prisms versus 1 gold prism, you could only sell the gold prism once, and you kind of got to pick the exact right point. Whereas with the silver, you could sell a few now, a few the next week, and a few maybe in a few months when something else happens. So it just depends on how you want to navigate the market. But I think the most important thing, in my opinion, would be to be targeting the most in-demand types of parallels possible. True colors, which means like just blue, not any specific type of special blue, just gold, just orange, that sort of thing. Not gold and purple seismic, gold and purple bubbles, prism, hypers, and all that kind of stuff. I would just be sticking to the super obvious, super mainstream true colors from key sets, and that's sort of what my prospecting strategy is from that perspective. The next question was about kabooms versus parallels. The question eventually boiled down to, how do you feel about rookie kabooms versus low-numbered base parallels? And while I don't own any right now, I'm going to be a bit biased here because I love the Kaboom inserts, and I probably will own them at some point for some players. I don't own any, at least of time of recording this video, but I do like the insert set a lot. So in soccer, I think it's rare for a rookie to have a Kaboom card. I actually couldn't think of any off the top of my head that have a rookie Kaboom or a Kaboom with a rookie logo on it released in the same season. So I'm not sure if there's any perfect examples of that, but that could change if Panini keeps producing more soccer cards, since in basketball and football, rookie Kabooms, especially the gold parallels numbered out of 10, are a really big deal for players' markets. So since we're talking about the second or third year cards that happen to be first Kabooms rather than true rookie cards, I think that changes things a lot. I personally wouldn't rank them above true colors from mainstream sets that are numbered to 50 or less, but outside of that, I think they could be a good option because of the rarity and popularity of the Kabooms inserts. And Kabooms, if you're not aware, they're easily the most popular insert of the era that we're in right now, the ultramodern era. Kabooms are the most popular insert across every sport except baseball, because Panini doesn't have the license to produce licensed baseball cards. But in basketball, football, and probably in soccer as well, the Kaboom inserts are the most popular insert sets of the era, and I think that bodes really well for them, not just in this era, but in the long run, as people have nostalgia for these types of inserts. So I just put up this example of Jamal Musiala's market. He has a third-year Kaboom that is in the 2022 Donruss FIFA set. That's his first Kaboom. In PSA 9, it costs around $500. All of these cards pictured here cost around $500. And at least in my opinion, between all of these, I would rank them either the Kaboom or the Sapphire Parallel, that's a PSA 10 condition, and then the other ones. I think those, at least in my opinion, would be the two that I target, just because I think the Kaboom is so iconic and so significant that I would target that over other rookie stuff that I don't think is as iconic or as mainstream in demand and viewed. But that's just my personal opinion. But I will say, in terms of Kabooms, if they start producing them in even more sets and Musiala ends up with 20 Kabooms by the time his career is over, then I'd start to worry and I wouldn't like them as much. But at least on the soccer side, Panini has done a good job of keeping the Kabooms relatively rare. I think Messi and Ronaldo have the most Kabooms at 4. So if those numbers start to get really high on ultramodern players like Musiala, and he gets one every single year and ends his career with 20, I don't like it as much, but at least right now, I like how seemingly rare they currently are. Alrighty, next question was on the value of first-year sets besides the obvious ones being 2014 Prism and 2017 Chrome. So, in my opinion, it's hard to know what the value, if there is a value play to be made in first-year sets beside those, because we're not really sure at this point which sets will continue to have lineage for the soccer card market. We know that Topps is going to be continuing to produce Chrome every single year, so that's great for Chrome and its lineage and its narratives, but we don't know if Panini will be able to continue producing Prism World Cup, but it's already such a staple in the market due to its historical significance. That's great for the Prism World Cup brand. If you're new or not familiar, the 2014 Prism set is seen as one of the most important sets in the hobby because it was the first really big mainstream Americanized release. It's fully licensed. Except for England, I think, doesn't have full licensing. But a lot of people look at this as the first mainstream modern era set for soccer. It has numbered cards, a lot of great stuff in it. One of the most important sets in the soccer card market is 2014 World Cup Prism. So that is huge for its relevance in the longer run. Outside of those two sets, we have things like Donruss and Select from Panini. You have things like Merlin, Stadium Club, Finest, and a few more sets like that from Topps. But I'd consider those much more speculative, and I don't see a reason why any of those sets would jump Chrome or Prism in priority or popularity going forward. So I don't really know what case to make in terms of targeting first-year Merlin being a great thing going forward. It's just not a narrative I subscribe to right now. In my opinion, a dark horse might be something like 2019 Chrome Sapphire, since that's the first year of Sapphire, which is a big deal in baseball, and Topps could continue releasing that set each year as the more premium version of Chrome. It also is Haaland's rookie season in 2019, so that could be significant going forward. But personally, I own 0, so I'm not trying to pump 2019 Chrome Sapphire. I just think there's some interesting narratives on that set, but I don't own any, and I'm not really trying to buy any right now. Then to the original question, I know the person that asked this also listed 2018 Treble along with the two obvious sets as being a first-year set to target, but I don't think that belongs in the group of significant first-year discussions because Treble is a really unique one-year thing that fully depends on collectors going back to that singular release. It can't really build its lineage or legacy because it was only released once, so I would not equate that to 2014 Prism and 2017 Chrome. That's sort of its whole own separate unique little thing. Alrighty, coming towards the end here, thoughts on MLS cards in the long run. In general, I think the most important thing is that the players have to be relevant. Messi's MLS cards will do well because it's Messi, not because he's in the MLS, but because it's Messi. United States men's national team prospect cards will do well because they're United States men's national team prospects, not specifically because they're in the MLS. Random MLS All-Star level players that are not relevant on a possible transfer to a major club or national team scale, I don't really see the market for that, so I wouldn't personally be targeting any of those types of players. Club legends, even in the European leagues, like club legends for Liverpool, club legends for Chelsea, some of the club legends for Real Madrid or Barcelona, a lot of them get forgotten in the hobby, possibly because they played in eras that people weren't collecting as much in. But if those types of guys don't get a lot of value, like Frank Lampard or Steven Gerrard and players like that, they have value, but really not a lot of value, especially for being as significant as they are for their clubs. I don't know why that would apply to the MLS and not the Premier League or other leagues. So, yeah, as I say there, the MLS is still a very small league compared to the European ones, and the world-class talent, at least right now, just isn't there. If club legends for some of the biggest teams in Europe don't command strong prices, I'm not sure why the MLS ones would. But with all this being said, I do think there's some MLS cards that make sense. For example, Ricardo Pepi's rookies are in the MLS sets, so obviously if Ricardo Pepi ends up being one of the big strikers for the United States men's national team going forward, those cards will be valuable. So Topps did recently release the Topps Renaissance set for 2022 MLS, and I think these cards look great. They look like Flawless or Dynasty or any of those other high-end sets you might be used to from other products or brands. But I think these cards look really good. But I don't think that just because there's MLS players in this and the set looks really nice that they'll hold great value. A guy like Chicharito, I think, makes sense for somebody that might hold value, but guys like Nicolas Loidero, I actually don't even know who that is, but I'm pretty sure he's an MLS All-Star level player. I don't really know what the forecast is for a guy like that because he's really not that well followed as a player. So those I wouldn't personally be targeting for any specific reason. All right, I think this is the last question before I get into the conclusion, and it is, do content creators push narratives on the soccer card market? And I think the answer is going to be yes on this. I think everyone in the market pushes narratives on cards, and myself would be included in that. It's a natural part of the hobby, in my opinion. You want to celebrate and show off the things that you own and the things you think are cool and the things you're researching and all that sort of stuff is what really makes the hobby fun. And people talking about the cards that they own or cards they're looking for, all that sort of stuff is what makes the hobby great. In my opinion, where it crosses the line is when there's some sort of ulterior motive. For example, you buy a lot of a certain player or set cheap and then market it to your audience in an attempt to make money off of them and dump it onto them. That's what a pump and dump would be. That's where I would draw the line. I personally try to disclose what I own and what I don't own and show the logic and my reasons for talking about a specific player, set, or whatever I'm talking about. And I think that's the most important part, and that's sort of where you can see where the pump and dump might be happening. You really want to look at people's fundamentals and the reasons for why they're recommending certain things, if they are recommending them, or think about why they're talking about them if they are talking about them. A lot of people just like to pump up cards that they own and would like to see the value increase on, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, we all want to have our cards hold and maintain value over time. And celebrating unique cards, sets, or whatever collecting in the hobby, that's a great thing. But trying to pump it and then dump it onto somebody else is where I think there's an issue. But as an educated part of the community, I think that we can easily see which is which. I think the people that consume this content are pretty educated in the soccer card market and can easily see what's pump versus what is like legitimate fundamentals-driven critical thinking. And it's pretty obvious if you spend some time in the market what the difference between those two things are, and it will help you avoid some of the pitfalls of pump and dumps that do still happen in the market. I'm putting up this really silly example. Nobody would ever make such an obvious, ridiculous pump and dump, but it's these sort of narratives that you would say are dangerous narratives to be pushing. You have 2018 Kylian Mbappe Prism, and then you have 2022 Kylian Mbappe Prism. An example of a bad narrative to push would be somebody that bought a bunch of the 2022 Prism parallels and says that they should be valued more than the 2018 ones because in 2022 Mbappe was one of the best players in that tournament. He had a historic World Cup final. He led the tournament in goals. And for all those reasons, those parallels should be valued more than the parallels from 2018, despite the fact that 2018 is earlier in his career and he won the World Cup and is considered a rookie and all that. So obviously that's a ridiculous overshoot of what a narrative would look like, but those sorts of narratives are the narratives I would consider bad for the hobby and, yeah, just not great. Alrighty, on a lighter note, we'll get to the conclusion. The conclusion basically is thank you. I appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving recently and pretty much through the whole time I've been doing this. I think I've been doing this for a year and a half-ish now, and so hitting 1.5k subscribers is really cool. A really cool milestone for myself and the community that we are putting together of critical thinking soccer card collectors, investors, gamblers, degenerates, prospectors, whatever you want to call it, having fun in the soccer card market. So I was actually looking at the comment sections recently. I'm proud of the community that we've built here and that engages with these videos, and I hope that you find the content to be educational and entertaining. I read through some of the comments on my most recent video, and I think there was a lot of good critical thinking on it and people sharing their opinions, and I think that's really cool to see, and that sort of thinking I think is great for this market and the continued growth of it. I don't do this for money. I don't make videos for money or do any of that stuff, and I'll never be doing it for money. You won't see me running ads for anything. Not that I have anything against those people, but that's just not why I'm going to do this. This is purely a passion project to share my thoughts on the market and hopefully grow the market in a positive way, pushing critical thinking on purchases and things like that. So, since this is not for money or on any specific schedule, as you've probably noticed, video releases can be random and I may go through periods where I don't post, but when I'm not posting, don't make the mistake of thinking I'm not still here in the market with you. I'm in the soccer card market pretty much every day of my life, looking at my eBay save searches or other websites where I look for cards and looking for cards constantly, raw to grade, all that sort of fun stuff. I'm always in the market, even if I'm not producing videos that day. So with all that being said, I will see you guys at 2,000 subscribers by Copa America. There will be more videos, of course, in between that, but I guess we'll leave that as the goal as we move forward this next year and into the ones after that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for the questions. Next video should be out whenever it is. I'm actually not sure what the next video is going to be. I guess it'll be a surprise for everyone. But thank you guys so much for the support. 1.5K is great. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Links are in the description for a bunch of different websites that I use, and then the Discord link is in the description as well. If you want to join others in the soccer card market, we talk about all sorts of stuff in there, so feel free to join. It's free. Everything associated with what I do is free, so enjoy it, and I will see you guys in the next video.